You ever look at a huge table of data and your eyes just glaze over? It's full of details for sure, but the real story, the big picture, is buried deep inside. Well, to find those answers, you've got to summarize. And in SQL, the key that unlocks all of that insight from a giant wall of data is just one command: group by. Today, we're going to break down exactly how it works, why it's so important, and how you can use it. So take a look at this. It's a pretty typical sales table, right? We see every single order, which is great if you need a transaction log. But what if I ask you, who's our most valuable customer? Answering that is actually kind of tricky here. You'd have to manually go through and add up all the orders for Cheyenne and then do it again for Alejandro. You see the problem? This data is super detailed, but it's not summarized at all. And that's our mission. We need to go from this long, messy list of individual orders to a really simple summary, one that shows us the total amount spent by each unique customer. So how do we tell the database to do all that heavy lifting for us? Well, the answer is the group by clause. This is the tool that lets us transform all those individual rows into clean, meaningful summaries. It's how we can finally start asking the real questions about our data. So, what is group by actually doing under the hood? At its very core, it's all about one thing: moving from individual rows to structured groups. At its heart, group by does one simple thing. It finds all the rows that have the same value in a column you specify, like, say, customer_name, and it collapses them all down into a single summary row. Think of it like a trash compactor for duplicate entries. Okay, so here's our before state one more time, just the raw data with multiple rows for the same person. And here is the after. See that? When we group by customer name, the database just squashes those rows together. Now each customer only shows up once. And this is a really key insight. When you use it like this, group by is basically doing the exact same thing as select distinct. It's a perfect way to just get a unique list of values from a column. But, getting a unique list is really just step one. The real power of group by comes when we start asking questions about those groups we just made. This is where we give our query a serious power-up. We ask these questions using what are called aggregate functions. These are special functions that perform a calculation on a whole group of rows and spit out a single value. You've probably seen the big ones: count to see how many there are, sum to get the total, average for the average. There are even some really cool ones like string_ag, which can actually stitch together text from different rows into one string. Now, let's put it all together. By combining group by customer name with the sum function on our order total column, we can finally answer our original question. The database groups all the rows by customer, and then for each of those little groups, it calculates the sum. And there it is, a clean, simple summary of total spending for every single customer. All right. Now for the one thing that trips up almost everybody at first. If you've ever gotten an error that says something like, column must appear in the group by clause, this one's for you. Here is the golden rule. Any column you put in your select list has to be one of two things. It either has to be in the group by clause itself, or it has to be wrapped inside an aggregate function like sum of or count of. That's it. The database just needs to know exactly what to do with that column for the whole group. Okay. So we can make groups, and we can summarize them. But what if we want to filter those groups? This brings us to a classic point of confusion, the big showdown between where and having. The difference here is all about timing. The where clause is like a bouncer at a club. It filters individual rows before they even get grouped together. It cleans up the raw data first. The having clause, on the other hand, is like the manager who comes over after a group is already at their table. It filters the groups themselves after the aggregation is already done. This logical order of operations makes it crystal clear. Think about it from the database's point of view. First, it gets the data with from. Then, it filters the individual rows with where. Only after that does it bunch them up with group by. After the groups are made, it filters them with having, and finally, it picks the columns to show you with select. So simply put, where is for before grouping, having is for after. Here is a perfect example. Let's say we want to find departments that have more than one employee. Your first thought might be to use where count asterisk greater than 1, but that's not going to work. Remember the order of operations? The where clause runs before the group by, so at that point, the count doesn't even exist yet. Instead, we have to group by department, calculate the count, and then use having to filter those final group results. Now, let's talk about a really powerful technique. What if the categories you want to group your data by don't even exist in your table? Well, with SQL, you can actually create them on the fly. It's true, right? Raw data often isn't set up in a way that's useful for a high-level report. We might have 1,000 specific product descriptions, but what we really need are broad product categories. The solution here is the incredibly useful case when statement. This thing lets you apply if-then logic right inside your query to build brand new, meaningful categories based on the data you already have. Check out how this works. We start with raw product names. Then we use a case when statement to lay out our logic. If the name is like sweater or jacket, let's call it outerwear. We'll do the same for dresses and tops. And then we can just group by that brand new custom category we literally just invented. It gives us a perfect summary. This technique is an absolute game changer. So group by is the foundation, but believe me, the rabbit hole goes way deeper. Let's just take a quick peek at some of the advanced grouping features and performance tricks that build on top of all this. For really complex reporting, SQL has some serious superpowers. Imagine you need totals by state, by city, and a grand total all in one go. Grouping sets can do that. Or what if you need a report with automatic subtotals, like sales per city that roll up into a state total? That's what rollup is for. And then there's Cube, which goes even further and gives you every possible combination of subtotals. It's incredible for deep dive analysis. Now, you might be thinking that grouping millions of rows must be super slow, but modern databases are built for this stuff. They use clever tricks like parallel aggregation, where they can split the workload across multiple processors. Each one calculates a piece of the puzzle, and then a main process combines them all at the end. It makes group by queries on massive data sets surprisingly fast. So from collapsing rows and calculating summaries to even creating your own custom categories, group by is the key that transforms raw data into real insight. Which really just leaves us with one final question to think about. What hidden patterns could group by help you uncover in your data?